I am Sergeant Steve Headley, the Public Information Officer with the Mishawaka Police Department. We're here today to discuss the incident that happened at the Karl King Tower early Tuesday morning involving the South Bend Police Department. With me here today, Sheriff Bill Redmond of St. Joseph County, St. Joseph County Prosecutor Ken Cotter, Mishawaka Police Department Chief Alex Arndt, Mishawaka Police Detective Captain John Yoder, St. Joseph County Police Detective Captain Aaron Santa, St. Joseph County Detective Parmalee, and Mishawaka Police Department Chief of Detectives Timothy Wiley. With that, I will hand it over to Chief Arndt, and he will begin the process.
Thank you, and thank you for being here this afternoon. I am Alex Arndt, Chief of Police with Mishawaka, and we are here today to give you an update regarding the South Bend Police Department officer-involved shooting that occurred on October 14th. I would like to start by saying that St. Joseph County has entered into a memorandum of understanding and a protocol for how officer-involved shootings would happen for transparency. Agencies will not investigate their own officer-involved incidents. And in this case, St. Joseph County and Mishawaka Police Department investigated this, and South Bend Police Department was not part of the investigation. We have a slideshow for you that you can follow on behind me. I'm trying to try and hit some of the high points of the investigation and what was used to present this case to the prosecutor's office for review. On October 14th at approximately 0:30 hours, which is 12:30 a.m., officers were dispatched to the Karl King Towers reference to a stabbing that had occurred there. Witnesses and dispatch advised that a woman had been stabbed and that there was a woman in an apartment and she was not being allowed to leave. Officers were able to speak with a couple of witnesses, and the first witness told officers that there was a female that had contacted her saying that she needed help. She had knocked on this woman's door asking for help regarding an injury to her bleeding hand that she had been stabbed. She also had advised that there was a male that was holding another female hostage in an apartment with 2 knives. This witness said that she knew the second victim that was supposedly being held hostage in the apartment, and that she heard a male that was screaming from inside the apartment. The first victim that had contacted this witness left the scene prior to officer arrival. A second witness was contacted, and the statement coincided with that of the first witness. Officers then proceeded to contact this individual at his apartment, which is where they believed that there was another female that was being held hostage. Contact was made at the apartment door with information that he was armed with a hammer and with a knife. Officers attempted to de-escalate the situation through a variety of means, and they were speaking with him for over an hour attempting to do so, but there was no resolution at that point. A search warrant for the apartment was applied for and was obtained by the officers. And at that time, they opened the door with a set of keys to be able to enter and to try to render aid or see what was going on with this female in the apartment. Immediately upon opening that door, an individual exited the apartment and charged at the officers while armed with a hammer. The officers subsequently used deadly force to stop the advance of the individual toward them with this hammer. This deadly force was with the utilization of firearms, and immediately the officers began to render aid to the individual, ultimately carrying him down the hallway in an elevator to the first floor where there was an ambulance that was waiting in order to take him to the hospital. The individual was pronounced deceased at approximately 2:45 in the morning at the hospital. In the investigation, the officers were able to speak with the victim from that apartment. She had advised that she and the individual were in a relationship. At some point during the night that he had used drugs a few hours before, and that he had been becoming violent. She tried to calm him down, but he had a hammer and a knife and she was unable to do so. At one point, she advised that he had put the knife to her throat, as well as had damaged a glass coffee pot in the apartment with that hammer. Fearing for her life, she ran to the bathroom of the apartment and locked herself in. She advised that while she was in the bathroom, that the individual had attempted to get into the bathroom by kicking in the door and by various means. Officers doing the crime scene investigation found that there was damage to the outside of the door, as though somebody had been trying to get into that bathroom. She also had advised that the individual was yelling and had said that he wanted to assault the cops that were outside the apartment. She ultimately stayed in that bathroom until the cops were able to get into the apartment and come to her aid. At this point, we have body cam footage of the incident that we're going to show to you. I do want to say that because of the nature of the event, we will be showing you the victim coming out, or the individual coming out of the apartment, and that video is stopped as the gunfire begins. For the gunfire portion of that, we have an audio clip that we will play for you so that you will be able to hear that, but not see the actual individual. After we get done with showing the video, do have a couple of still photos that is going to show the individual as well as the weapon that he displayed as he charged at the officers. And then we'll identify the subject as well as the officers that were involved in the event. If you want to go ahead and play the first video. So this is, as you saw, the individual coming out of the apartment with a weapon in his hand and beginning to advance toward the officers. So the audio there at the end was the sound of the gunfire. What you're seeing here are a couple of still shots of the individual as he exits the apartment. And you can see that he has a claw hammer in his hand. And then he is advancing toward the officer, who you can see at the top has his arms displayed. The individual is being identified as Christopher Chester. He's 55 years old. He's identified by fingerprints and witness statements. An autopsy was completed, and the cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. South Bend officers that were directly involved in the incident were Greg Howard, Austin Minix, Sean Ryan, and David Stefanowski. Before I turn it over to Prosecutor Cotter, I do want to mention or thank the investigators that worked this case and all officers that were involved for their professionalism and determination to transparently determine the facts of the case and this incident. A lot of officers put a lot of time into this to again, determine those facts and to handle it with professionalism. I believe that's all that I have at this time. I'm going to turn this over to Prosecutor Cotter and allow him to comment. It was that after the facts of the case were developed and was concluded, those facts were passed off to the prosecutor's office for review and determination.
Thank you, Chief. I'm Ken Cotter. I'm the prosecutor of St. Joseph County. As the chief had advised you, these are many of the facts that were conveyed to us. So the question isn't, was it a homicide? It is a homicide. Whenever a homicide is defined as death at the hands of another person. But that doesn't make it a crime. There is a determination of whether it's a criminal homicide or a justified homicide. And the factors that I have to weigh, and that all prosecutors have to weigh, is whether or not it was justified. Did they have a right to protect themselves or others using deadly force? Indiana law is pretty clear on that. It requires two things. One, was it an honest belief that they were in fear of imminent serious bodily danger or death? And two, would a reasonable person in their shoes have felt the same way? So it has to be both. You can't not be afraid and do it, but maybe somebody else would. That's not justified. You also can't say, oh, gee, they were looking at me and I'm afraid that they're going to kill me, so I'm going to shoot and kill you. That a reasonable person would not have felt that way. In this case, what facts do we have to make that determination? Well, first, we have the dispatch to those officers, letting them know that a woman has been stabbed. When they arrived, they spoke to two witnesses saying that a woman bleeding from a hand had said that a man in this apartment had stabbed her, and that there was another woman in there and she was fearful for her and was not able to leave that apartment. Those officers spent about an hour trying to negotiate with the man, Mr. Chester. They actually were able to verify that he had a knife and a hammer in his hands. They applied for a search warrant, and a judge reviewed those facts, and the judge determined that yes, they had a legal right to get into that apartment in order to find out and potentially render aid to the other woman who was in there. The man who was inside, Mr. Chester, was yelling at the officers. He was trying to sometimes negotiate. At one point, he actually said, if I don't get food, bad things are going to happen. Get me McDonald's. The officers actually got McDonald's and went outside his window and showed him a bag of McDonald's. I know you didn't put that in the slide, but the officers took a variety of steps to try to de-escalate this, and that didn't work. And so 2 minutes after they obtained that search warrant, they got the keys and they opened the door, and you were able to see what Mr. Chester did. So the question is, would a reasonable person in those officers' shoes have been in fear of imminent serious bodily injury or death? And I think the answer is clearly it was. Two of those four officers discharged firearms. One officer with a rifle, he fired 4 times. One officer with a handgun, he fired 4 times. Another officer fired pepper balls. The pepper balls obviously didn't stop him. I think you can even see the cloud at the end. Instead, he continued to come towards that officer with that hammer. Based on all of those facts that those officers had, it is clear that their actions were justified. And it's unfortunate that those officers had to do that. Frankly, watching their interviews and how broke up they were that they had to do that was heart-wrenching from my standpoint. What I was most impressed was not how well they did what they tried to do, which I thought they did very well, but the actions afterwards. Immediately after he went down, I know it's not on the video because we didn't want to show the shooting itself, but immediately afterwards, they kicked the hammer away, and immediately they are rendering aid to Mr. Chester. There's pepper spray in the hallway. They pick him up and carry him downstairs where an ambulance had been staged to try to save him. They're talking to each other. How can we help this guy? To go from this guy is trying to seriously injure me or kill me to I'm going to try to save you was very impressive. We have good law enforcement officers in our community. There are some that we have to work with, but I got to tell you, for the vast majority, the officers who were involved here, I thought did a very good job. I am very pleased with the work that the county police did and the Mishawaka police did in investigating this. Nobody was trying to hide anything. When any of the videos, the body cameras, any of the information was requested from the South Bend Police Department, they did an outstanding job of getting it when we needed it, didn't try to hide anything, didn't try to explain anything, and let our professionals do their job. It is a very sad day whenever anyone dies, but it doesn't mean that somebody is criminally liable. And in this case, the officers did what we would hope officers would do, try to save people both before and afterwards. And keep in mind that I'd forgotten this fact that the Karl King apartments have a number of elderly, and the two individuals that the officers spoke with were older women. And they voiced their fear. One woman at one point was talking about, I need to get out of here right away, because she was afraid what that person would have done when she saw the one woman bleeding and then heard the yelling from that apartment. I know, Sheriff, that you didn't want to say anything. Do you guys have any questions? And it may need Chief Arndt up here as well, but do you all have any questions? Yes, sir.
What about non-lethal? I know you said the pepper balls. What about like a taser or something?
Yeah,
kind of
so
thing?
good question. A fourth officer, actually, we put 4 officers up there. Fourth officer had his taser, it malfunctioned. He was not able to activate it. He did try, but it didn't work.
Is that the type of a situation that a taser would be appropriate for?
From Ken Cotter's standpoint, this is not prosecutors, well, but because it's a reasonable person in those shoes, somebody's coming at me a hammer, I'm not sure I'm going to hope that a taser works. Not the way he was coming out, and not based on all of the facts that they had prior to that confrontation. It wasn't just all of a sudden a guy's with a hammer. He was making threats when he was in the apartment. They knew that the woman had been stabbed. They knew that a woman was inside and she couldn't get out. The door to the bathroom where the woman was hiding, Chief alluded to it. The damage was, there was a gouge mark from a hammer in the door. The door handle was broken off. Based on all of those facts, I don't think anybody should question if in that situation, at that moment, they used deadly force. From a layman's perspective and from the prosecutor, who's got to review these. I don't know if, Chief, you wanted to add to that.
I would just say that, I believe we're going to be providing what we've shown you here for review, but as you'll notice, this is a very rapidly accelerating incident when that door opens. Less lethal is in place. Less lethal was attempted to be used, but officers had to make the decision that subject was still advancing on them, with closing that gap very rapidly with a deadly weapon. And then deadly force, as the prosecutor has reviewed and says, was appropriate in this situation.
Just before, I did forget to say, now, after this investigation, that protocol that the chief talked about early on between the different departments when an officer is involved in a deadly incident, South Bend will now review that to determine whether or not they followed all of their protocols. But from a criminal liability standpoint, it's very clear that the officers did nothing wrong. And I'm sorry I stopped you.
In the original press release, it said that the woman who was stabbed, she was unable to be located. Any update? Has she been located?
We have, or I should say, the detectives have attempted to locate her. In speaking with her mother advises that she has, probably because she was shook up, she's fled the state and she wants nothing to do with this.
Okay, but she's been identified?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that's victim one, the one who knocked on the door?
Correct, who was cut on the hand? Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, victim two, who was in the apartment,
Yeah.
she was talked to.
Okay.
She let us know about his activities both during and before the shooting.
Victim two's a girlfriend?
Victim,
In a relationship.
they were in a relationship, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chester is not from this area. Our detectives have spoken to his mother. She hasn't talked to him in 16 years. He's floated from place to place, but at least according to the victim two, for the last 3 months, they had been in a relationship.
Did he have any prior history of violence?
Can't talk about a person's prior criminal history, sorry. Ethically, I can't do that. Yeah,
But it's her apartment.
that's correct. Yeah, it's not his. He actually is not supposed to be staying there, but he was.
Why was he supposed to stay there?
He was not supposed to because the leases only allow, frankly, I don't know why they have their rules, but only the people who are on the lease are allowed to stay there for any extended period of time.
After the autopsy, were there any tests performed to confirm the presence of narcotics in Mr. Chester's system?
Yeah, the autopsy was completed, but that investigation is not completed.
Okay.
So they have to do the drug testing. We do not have the results.
Okay.
All 8 shots did strike Mr. Chester. He was struck two times on one arm, 1 time on another arm, and then 5 times in the general body area.
Okay. And for the 4 officers involved in the shooting, is there any word on when they will return to active duty?
That'd be something you'd want to talk to the South Bend Police Department. The thing I like, one of the things I like the most about this protocol is it allows the investigators to determine whether or not any criminal actions occurred by the officers, to just focus on that, and then let the originating department make determinations on what else they do. I know that they require that they go to counseling and things like that, but I don't know how many days that would be.
So it's just,
I know toxicology is still out, right?
Correct.
Did it seem like he was intoxicated?
Listening to the hour of attempted negotiations, he was not in the mind that you and I would be in. I'll just put it that way. Was he?
There's mental illness and then there's drug use.
Again, sometimes you can't tell the difference between the two. His mother had some concerns about his mental health, but there was no formal findings that he was suffering from any mental illnesses.
I know you mentioned that officers got him McDonald's as part of negotiations.
Well, tried to. I mean, they
Or
showed him a
tried
bag
to,
outside
yeah.
the window. Right.
Can you speak on what other negotiation tactics were used?
I think it's not a good idea that they do that because there are
No,
things
that's-
that you guys.
I think that's part of the policy and procedures related to the South Bend Police Department, and that's something that you can contact them regarding. It's not appropriate for me to comment as a Mishawaka Police Department as to another agency.
Any other questions?
Is that what you meant, was not appropriate for him to talk about South Bend Police's policies?
I think it's not a smart move for all of us to know how the police are going to solve something, especially when there's a violent act that potentially did occur and can occur in the future, because otherwise people can kind of get ready for those and respond negatively. But I also agree with that's a South Bend decision, not Mishawaka's.
Yeah, the Mishawaka Police Department and St. Joseph County Police Department's purpose in this investigation was to determine the facts of what did happen and then present them to the prosecutor's office for review.
Is the woman whose apartment it was at Karl King, is she still staying there?
I do
or-
not know.
Do you know? Doesn't matter.
The scene's been released,
Yeah,
so
the scene's
that's
been
her
released.
apartment. Whether she's still staying there, I don't know.
Do we have her age?
I do not know. Rebecca, do you know her age?
She's in her 70s.
The victim, too? The victim who was in the bathroom?
Correct.
In her 70s.
Do we have an age for victim 1?
She was younger, 30s?
Under 20.
Under 20? I know she wasn't like a 15-year-old, but okay. That tells you how good I am being 63 on whether a young person is in their 30s or
Was there
in their
anyone
teens.
else in the apartment before things escalated besides victim 1 and 2?
We're only aware of those.
So victim 1 had been in there, but she got out.
Correct.
Correct. And victim 2 had made comments that she wasn't sure, but she thought that victim 2 or victim 1 was going to try to get out while victim 2 was going to the bathroom. And then it was confirmed that victim 1 did get out.
Is there any known relation between victim 1 and 2?
Not that we're aware of.
Any other questions? Again, Chief, thank you for your investigation. Sheriff, thank you for the investigation. This will now be turned over to the South Bend Police Department, and they will review the protocols and the actions of the officers. Have a good evening.